We're going to start with Genesis 45, and we left with verse 8. What happened last week is that Joseph had revealed himself, I've got some hair on my face, had revealed himself to his brothers. So then in verse 9, Joseph wants Jacob to come. So Joseph says, "Haste ye and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me and tarry not." I think that's kind of neat. He wants to make sure his dad knows he's the Lord of Egypt. You know how a kid wants approval from their parents. And he's like, don't forget to tell them I'm the Lord of Egypt. "And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children and thy children's children, and thy flocks and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee. For yet there are 5 years of famine left, lest thou and thy household all come to poverty." So what Joseph is doing is so kind. He's picked out the very best land. And if you look at a map of Egypt, you're going to see, you can see that on the map where Goshen is. There's a delta. So there's all these little tributaries going out right there. So the land is really fertile. And it's really good for cattle. It still is today. It's really good for the sheep and the cattle and all that. But there's something else. And that's that Goshen is it's on the edge of Egypt. So they don't know how long they're going to stay there. And Joseph doesn't either. So he set them right there where it's going to be really easy to leave. Okay, so he says, "I'm going to take care of you there. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father." So he's saying that Benjamin's a witness here that what I'm saying is true. You don't want any funny stuff going on with those brothers. "And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck." That must have been such a touching scene. Those two brothers having been separated for like over 17 years. "Moreover, he kissed all of his brethren and wept on them. And after that, his brethren talked with him." After that, they talked with him. Once he cried and said, "Hey, I'm taking care of you guys. I'm taking care of your kids. I'm taking care of your grandkids. I'm taking care of your cattle and everything." And after all the crying, now they're going to talk to him because they were scared. "And the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come. And it pleased Joseph well, and his servants. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Say unto thy brethren, This do ye. Lade your beasts," that means put all of your grain that you're taking, "and go into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt. And ye shall eat of the fat of the land." So they're going to be treated like royalty. And Hebrews really weren't thought highly of in Egypt. So this is all because of Joseph. All because of God being with Joseph. "Now thou art commanded, this do ye. Take you wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come." So this is kind of nice. What he's saying is, he says for your little ones and your wives, so they won't have to walk, or they won't have to ride on a beast. He's providing these wagons. That's very thoughtful, because he mentions the wives and the little ones, and the father.
Because of Joseph, huh? Again, it's because of Joseph.
Absolutely.
Not because of nothing.
No, he loves Joseph. Joseph saved the country. "And the children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provisions for the way." So he gave them some stuff because it was a little bit of a trip, and they would need food to get to where the rest of the family was. And then they would also have food for the way back. But these were like the royal wagons. These weren't just any old wagons. "And to his father he sent after this manner, 10 asses laden with good things from Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for thy father by the way. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed. And he said unto them, see that ye fall not out by the way. Okay. You know, he has to kind of warn these guys. Make sure you make it there and don't diddle around. That's basically what he's saying. And they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father, and told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive. This is the first he's heard of it. And he's governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is just his sons telling him that.
Yeah.
And he knows for sure that Joseph was torn apart by animals, because they brought him the coat. And they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons, which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob, their father, revived. So all this time, he kept saying, I'm going to go to my grave, mourning my son, Joseph. And now, he's finally revived.
Wow.
He has a reason to live, and that's to, yeah, he wants to see Joseph. And Israel said, it is yet enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. So his whole world just turned from disaster to glory. He thought that he was gone forever. It's such a beautiful thing. Okay, so now in chapter 46, and Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. Now what's interesting about this was a place where Abraham and Isaac had both offered sacrifices at Beersheba. And another thing, when Abraham went to Egypt, you got to think about this would be in Jacob's mind. When Abraham went to Egypt, remember he got into all that trouble? He said that his wife was his sister, and then the Pharaoh wanted her, and you know, blah, 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 caused all this problem. And then God had told Isaac, just don't even go down to Egypt. So now he wants to get this right with God, that it's the right thing. So he's offering this sacrifice at Beersheba. And God speaks to Jacob in a vision by night. Okay, that's 46 verse 2. And he said, and Jacob said, here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down to Egypt. See, he knew what was on his mind. So he's comforting him. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make thee a great nation. They start multiplying like rabbits, because that was part of the promise, that they'd become a great nation there in Egypt. And then God says, I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. Okay, what that means is that when you die and you're like this, someone closes your eyes. That's just out of respect. What he said is that Joseph is going to be the one to put his hands on your eyes. So he's going to be with you when you die.
Wow.
So it was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, wow.
And the other thing is that when Jacob was at Bethel, and he had the dream of the ladder. Some fly is in here, wants air conditioning. And God told him then the same thing, I'll be with you, remember? He left Bethel with only a staff in hand. That's all he had. And he came back a wealthy man. So he's giving him the same promise. I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to bring you out. Now, when he says you, he does actually end up coming out after he dies. But I think he's talking about his descendants. They will come out. Okay. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones and their wives in the wagons, which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him. His sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him to Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Okay, I am not going to read all the names, okay? The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. All the souls that came with Jacob into Egypt, which came out of his loins, besides Jacob's sons' wives, all the souls were threescore and 6, that's 66. But that's not counting Jacob, and that's not counting Joseph and his 2 sons. And the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls. All the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph. This is what Jacob did. He sent Judah because it's not like they could just go up to Joseph's house, to direct his face unto Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen. Okay, then verse 29, Joseph finally gets his chance to meet his dad. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen, and presented himself unto him. And he fell upon his neck and wept on his neck a good while. This is even more dramatic than Benjamin and Joseph, because Jacob here thinking that Joseph was dead many years ago, and now they were going to die from famine, and now they're all being taken care of, and there's his son. It's just a dream come true for him.
I love his son,
yeah. It was his favorite son.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. And Israel said unto Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren, and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, my brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come up unto me. By the way, he ends up living like 17 more years.
Oh,
Jacob. Yes.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Whoa.
God
And the
really blessed him.
yes,
Right.
That's so,
he did.
That's so wonderful.
Okay, then Joseph kind of gives the brothers some advice when they're going to be talking to Pharaoh, and the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you and shall say, what is your occupation? That was an appropriate question in those times. That ye shall say, thy servant's trade hath been about cattle from our youth until now, both we and our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Remember we said this before? Not only is a Hebrew an abomination, a shepherd is an abomination. Part of the reason is because shepherds have cattle too, and they kill them, and they worship cattle.
Oh. The Indians do. Oh,
They worship, oh yeah, they worship a lot of things. But remember how Joseph had to eat separately from the Egyptians in the house? Yeah, because they couldn't even eat together, because he was Hebrew, and yeah, the Egyptians kind of had those rules. Now we are in chapter 47. This is where he brings his 5 brothers to Pharaoh. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, my father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds, all about that they have, are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took some of his brethren, 5, and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, what is your occupation? Well, see, Joseph really knows what's going on there in the palace. And they said unto Pharaoh, thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. And then they just explained that they came here because of the famine, and please let us dwell in the land of Goshen, which has already been determined. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and thy brethren to dwell. Can you imagine having somebody who's not a believer? I mean, God can control people. Yeah. Giving them the very best. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if now listen to this. If thou knowest any men of activity among them, meaning if any of them are really good at what they're doing with the cattle, then make them rulers over my cattle. Now they could have a royal job. Of course, they don't kill theirs. But he's offering them, if they know how to do this, hey, they could work for me. And Joseph brought Jacob his father and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh.
Daddy, that's what you asked him? How old are you?
Okay, then it's after that, and Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? But what you discover is that the lesser is always blessed of the greater. Like Melchizedek blessed Abraham, right? Because he was of a higher position. And Pharaoh said, how old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh. Now this is really interesting. He could have said, well, you know, God's been with me and I didn't have anything, and then he blessed me with all these goods and all my sons, and Joseph, you know, the one that's helped you. So he could have bragged, but he didn't. He's a different man now. And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of my years and pilgrimages are 130. Few and evil have the days of my life been, and have not attained unto the years of the life of my father in the days of their pilgrimage. He doesn't brag, nothing. He just says, I didn't even do as good as my fathers did. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh again and went out from before Pharaoh. Yeah, that's just amazing right there. Yeah, it's beautiful. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses. Actually became a later name for that area, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father. This is so beautiful. And his brethren, and all his father's household with bread according to their families. Now this is going to tell about Joseph's administration in Egypt. I think I mentioned this, but I forgot that I hadn't taught you about this. He's tough on people. Listen what happens. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt. And in the land of Canaan, he got everyone's money. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. See what kind of a servant he is to Pharaoh?
Beautiful, yeah.
And when money failed, when they ran out of money in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money failed us. I mean, we don't have any more money, but we're going to die. And listen what Joseph does. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for their horses and their flocks and their cattle and their herds and for the asses, and fed them with the bread for all their cattle for that year. It gets worse. When that year ended, they came unto him a second year and said, we will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath a herd of cattle. That is not all left in the sight of my lord. There's nothing left but our bodies and our lands. That's all we have. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt. Can you believe this? Through his wisdom and God giving him wisdom.
Yes.
Now Pharaoh owns the entire land of Egypt, and I think from one end of the borders of Egypt even to the other thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not. So there were priests in Egypt that had land, and he had respect for their religion. For the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did not eat portions which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their land. So they were being taken care of. Pharaoh was already feeding, their priests. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is your seed, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give, listen to this, the fifth part unto Pharaoh.
Wow.
He's charging a tax now. Yeah.
Wow.
And 4 parts shall be your own.
Wow.
For seed in the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in thy sight, O Lord, that we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, which would have been when Moses wrote this, which was a lot later, that Pharaoh should have 1/5 part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. So you got to understand, that's part of the promise, that they were going to be a big nation, and it's starting to happen right there in Egypt, right? And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. He was 130 when he got there, so that means he lived to be 147.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, this is when he speaks to Joseph,
Wow.
put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. That was a way of making a promise. And deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. He wanted to be buried in the land of promise with his fathers.
Which one is the land of promise?
Canaan. Canaan. But I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. You know, where Abraham and Isaac were buried.
Is that when he bought the land?
He bought
for
that
Sarah,
land.
And then he was going to be...
Yes, he bought that land for Sarah, and then he was buried there. Isaac was buried there. And they wanted to just give him the land, but no.
Yes, yes.
He insisted on paying for it. And he said, Swear unto me. And he swore unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. Okay, I'm going to end it there at 48.
So he also wanted to be buried over there, because I remember Joseph, they carried his bones later on and whatever. But
Okay, yeah, what happened with Joseph is Joseph, before he dies, he makes the families, the other tribes, promise to carry his bones out. And the thing about Joseph is that because he was in the hierarchy there, he would have been made into a mummy. So it would be very easy for them to take his bones out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was probably, they had it in their possession, and it was probably like, you know, some kind of a, hey, wow, some kind of a shrine or something.